The rescue helicopter service responds to around 2 incidents a day in the Hunter, but the health union's warning it could have its wings clipped. It claims budget cuts means there's not enough helicopter-trained paramedics to man the chopper.
They're now failing to ensure that the intensive care paramedics based at Cardiff are helicopter trained.
According to the union, that means a long and potentially deadly wait if the helicopter-trained crew at Hamilton is busy.
About 1 in 4 cases, the Westpac will not be able to fly simply because there will not be a helicopter-trained crew based at Cardiff Station.
Peter Rumble had a sympathetic ear in New South Wales opposition leader John Robertson this afternoon.
At the moment, the way the staffing works, we're seeing the helicopter have to wait extreme lengths of time before they can take off because paramedics aren't where they're required.
During the visit, the Health Services Union also raised concerns about waiting times of up to 36 minutes and the backlog of ambulances at hospitals. The opposition leader was in town for his first Shadow Community meeting, currently underway at Newcastle Panthers.
The Shadow Cabinet's out talking to the community, local businesses, just getting a sense of what the really important issues are in the area.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News. 2 years after Council first voted to bring in the chainsaws, the 14 Layman Street figs are still standing, and Newcastle ratepayers are $1.2 million poorer.
I think it's appalling.
It's disgusting. Below the garbage.
It's ridiculous.
So where has all the money gone? From August 2009 until October 7 of this year, when the chainsaws actually arrived, the bill had already topped $700,000. The breakdown, mostly staff time and an initial court action, which came in at $160,000. Since then, security, up to a dozen guards, and fencing added $20,000 a day. The level of security was recently reduced, but it still costs $3,500 daily. Council won't speculate on the cost of future court action, but says significant resources are being diverted from operational activities.
If the council did the right thing, we wouldn't have this cost in the first place.
It's a pretty extreme price put on, a whole lot of nothing. So it is a bit ridiculous.
Especially in a city so desperately in need of some TLC.
I know a lot of people think that money could be spent elsewhere in the city.
Meanwhile, after being closed for 24 days, the city's art gallery and library will reopen tomorrow.
She's a remarkable woman. Professor Amanda Baker spends her days trying to identify the link between mental health and drug and alcohol problems.
Often people receive treatment for one or the other, but not both. And treatment services focus on one or the other and not both.
Last night she was named HMRI's Researcher of the Year and also took out the award for research excellence. It's the first time in the award's 16-year history that it's been won by a woman. All this amid a National Health and Medical Research Centre grant of $1.1 million for a program aimed at getting people diagnosed with head and neck cancers to have a healthier diet.
And that's related to the whole sort of drug and alcohol and health field, in that lots of people with head and neck cancer are from poorer backgrounds. They smoke and they often drink.
Also on last night's Honour Roll, male infertility expert Mark Baker. While 1 in 20 men are infertile, in around 50% of cases, scientists have no idea why.
We've recently figured out exactly how sperm activate their motility status. So we know it's a phosphorylation event. We're currently hunting down what's responsible for those events, but there's certainly progress being made.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It was a bit like the first day back at school as the New Look Knights gathered for medical checks. It's been 4 years since Cade Snowden wore Newcastle colours, and he can't wait to return after a season with the Sharks hampered by back problems.
Pretty bad. I've missed about 4 games. Couldn't move off the lounge at one stage, but that's all. It's all good now, and the physio's working really good on it.
It'll take at least a fortnight until he knows for sure if he requires surgery on a bulging disc, but the Blues and Australian rep is confident he'll be ready for the Dragons in round 1.
Yeah, well, I need to prove myself to the coach as well. Just make sure I'm doing everything right and just keep playing good.
Tamana Tahu made his name at the Knights, so the decision to return was easy.
Yeah, I'll probably slow down a little bit on speed, but I'll probably feel stronger than I've ever been, and probably a lot more smarter.
And after another early finals exit, the skipper has had enough.
At the end of each one, when you sit in the sheds after a loss, it's another one that's slipped by. So, I'd like to be playing in the big one this year.
Kevin Mettam, NBN News.
Is just on full right at this moment. So had a look at Marco play last night, and I think he just needs more games.
Inside these offices, Northern New South Wales football is at war with itself. It follows the shock sacking of CEO David Eland last week. Today, one of the men responsible, Chairman Peter Moore, fronted the media.
There was a vote of no confidence from the board, and that was the reason. As I said before, it was not on performance, it was on something else. Well, that's something that must remain within the board, as you can be aware.
Staff were instructed not to speak on camera but were clearly upset by the chain of events. Representatives of the 7 football zones also struggled to be heard.
No, thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. Any other questions?
But the man behind 52,000 players and staff across the state isn't about to be silenced.
Look, it's disappointing what Northern New South Wales has done to the 7 zones. After a meeting last night, we are going to proceed with the legal avenue that we have.
It isn't an ideal way to start a new job, but former Newcastle United CEO Jock Graham says he's ready and willing.
Certainly it's been a very difficult week for all concerned, and I certainly appreciate that, but I'll commence my official duties on Monday morning.
Kevin Mettam, NBN News.
The switch was flicked for the $25.5 million upgrade this morning. The Minister for Services, Greg Pearce, doing the honours. The work, carried out over 18 months, means Boulder Bay Wastewater Treatment Plant is now more efficient and environmentally friendly.
We've upgraded our biological treatment process to ensure that we can remove things like nitrogen so that the effluent we discharge doesn't have any adverse impact on the marine environment.
It's also producing an improved biosolids product, which is trucked around the region for use in agriculture and mine site rehabilitation.
By upgrading the plant, we're producing a product that's drier and more usable.
The upgrade will cater for the increased pressure during holiday periods and the predicted growth in the region's population of 15,000 people over the next 7 years.
And it's been designed so that if the peninsula grows faster than anticipated, that we can come back fairly easily, add again some additional process units.
The government is very, very keen to ensure that we proceed with this type of infrastructure to ensure growth into the future, and also in fabulous regions like Port Stephens that the tourism industry is adequately catered for.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
The report recommends the removal of quite a bit of sand. In fact, it's about $3.25 million worth of sand. But we would like the community to have a look at the study.
Popular, happy, and from outward appearances, not a care in the world. But 20-year-old Afghani refugee Abdul Jamali has experienced more hardship than most people do in a lifetime. 2 years ago, the Hunter TAFE student fled his homeland to come to Australia and turn his life around.
Oh, totally, 180 degrees. it totally changed my life. I was not the person I am at the moment. I was really stressed. I used to worry about my life. I used to worry about my career, my studies, everything. I can sleep well now.
And he's excelled in his new home. 6 months ago, he was awarded an Encouragement Award. Today, he was guest speaker at that same awards ceremony.
Before coming to Australia, I didn't know anything about science subjects. I didn't know anything about maths, physics, chemistry, and all other science subjects, English, computing. Now I'm doing 400 subjects and I'm going to uni next year.
The awards are designed to help students who have experienced adversity and are struggling financially.
It encourages them and gets them to realise the esteem in which they're held, which in turn creates, if you like, enthusiasm by themselves to complete their course.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
If the old saying, "you are what you eat," really is true, then these kids are healthy machines. That's because these youngsters are all tucking into foods which are additive-free.
There's a number of additives that are really bad for children, like MSG and aspartame, and what's interesting is that people don't understand that they're in so many foods, and so many of those foods are actually aimed at children.
Foods which some kids consume almost every day.
Say a standard chicken nugget that's available at a canteen, there's a number of additives in there, sometimes 2 or 3 forms of MSG, plus also preservatives, and most of those products aren't even about 30% chicken.
Those additives can lead to behavioural and health problems.
We have a fundamental role in development of these children, and there's more and more links now with additives and foods in general and behavioural issues, which we're seeing more and more of in early childhood in general.
And if you're wondering how to keep additives out of your children's diet, take a closer look.
Don't look at the front of the product, because what they'll say, a lot of manufacturers will put down no artificial colours and flavours. When you flip it over and actually look at the ingredients listing, you'll find that there is either preservatives or a form of another additive flavour.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It was tough to handle then, and we're still, I guess, swallowing it. But look, they deserve the win that day at Murrayfield. Unlucky for us, the conversion didn't go over and we didn't win the game. But we didn't perform too well then. But I guess looking back on that, yeah, we'll look to, I guess, get one back on the Scots.
Started really well. I was hitting it good and I was rolling the putts in, so it was good.
Danny Badiris is one of the Knights' favourite sons, but he isn't concerned about damaging his legacy, despite the fact some players struggle when returning from Super League.
You don't want to live life in fear and worrying about that sort of stuff. I want to come back, and I'm looking on the other way. It's a plus and a privilege, and this part of my career to be able to come back to my hometown club and play in front of these great supporters and on this ground that I've cherished.
The 34-year-old will join his teammates for pre-season training in December and is confident his body can handle the rigours of the NRL following a rough start in the UK.
Bit unlucky with a broken leg and a few little different things, but this year I trained every session, didn't miss a game, and body's fine after a grand final win, so I'm on a high at the minute.
The former Blues skipper says the Knights' new management team and the addition of Wayne Bennett were big factors in his return, but it also increases the level of expectation.
There's going to be pressure, there'll be expectation, and hopefully there's patience from everyone, from the media and the fans alike. If we get going when the whips are cracking at the good time of the year, I think that's what it'll be all about. It might be a bit slow at the start, but I'm sure when the big games arrive, you'll probably see the best of the team.
Badiris played down the prospect of playing rep footy, but hasn't ruled out more than one season with Newcastle.
If your form's good and you're consistent and you're doing your part in the team and your body feels great, I'd throw my hand up for sure.
On the field, he was known as an enforcer. This Sunday, Mark Sargent will join a handful of Knights in the teams event at the second annual Mackerras Ironman Classic, where competitors ski, paddleboard, swim and run 27 kilometres.
We've trained pretty well. We're out there to have a go. I mean, I know there's some pretty competitive side teams that'll be in it, but we're not going to break any records, but we'll finish.
With last year's winner Ali Day pulling out, there's hope a local can claim the title.
He's had a stress fracture in his lower leg. He's been on crutches and he's only just come off them, so he's really disappointed not to be here.
Named in honour of Peter Golding Mackerras, the inaugural event was plagued by horrible weather.
I was on patrol at this end of the beach, so it was pretty bad. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be a bit like this. So your mate Gav Morris tells us, fingers crossed.
Even Australia's under-17 Ironman champion is looking forward to better conditions.
The ski leg last year, I sort of got off the ski, and because it's all upper body work, my legs were really numb. And I had to get carried to my board pretty much to get on and paddle. So this year I've been doing a lot more ski work.
On the track, and Saturday's Newcastle Mile has attracted a cracking field, including the past two champions. For the first time ever, the winner gains automatic entry to the Miracle Mile.
We always drew a good field, and the winner usually got invited, but now it's automatic. That's the first time it's ever happened. So we've increased the prize money of the race up to $70,000, and it's paid off. We've got runners from Queensland, from Victoria, from New Zealand, and the best from New South Wales.
It starts with a little snip, along with hours of dedication, patience and hard work to create what you see here. Bonsai trees, they've been around for centuries, but more and more Aussies are cutting their way into the pastime, with groups and societies sprouting up right across the country.
Basically every meeting is a workshop. You bring a tree along, you can sit there, work on it. You can gain from other members.
These are the masterpieces of the Hunter Valleys branch. Pick any type of tree and you can be sure they've made it a bonsai.
We've probably got around about the 80 odd tree mark. They vary from junipers, figs, pines.
Even the good old Aussie bottle brush. But just what makes a good bonsai? Well, apparently it's all in the detail.
This one's a willow leaf fig, Nerifolia. If you can have a look at it, you'll see a nice wide base tapering up to a smaller thing, and you have your branches.
Each of these trees really has their own unique story. For example, this elm here was rescued from a paddock on the way to Singleton in the Hunter Valley. It had been eaten down to its trunk by cows, but with plenty of hard work, care and attention, it's grown into what you see here today. And as they say, getting there is only half the fun. It really is about the journey.
Just the peace and quiet you get while you're working on them, and then watching it grow and mature from a bit of raw material to a living masterpiece.
And isn't that what it's all about? Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. It's a far cry from what stood before it. From rundown to renovated, Surf House is now open for business.
It's been a long road for us. We're very glad to get going.
Last night, the first official function was held, around 1 week after the kiosk and cafe opened on the ground level.
It's been busy. We've had generally very positive feedback. People are, once again, they're glad it's finished.
With all the latest mod cons and priceless views, it's easy to understand why.
Lots of bookings up here. We've got lots of weddings booked in, lots of corporate functions, Christmas functions. The support and response has been fantastic.
The upstairs restaurants will open in December. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News. They came in their thousands, attracted by some aerial acrobatics. All for a good cause.
To restore a World War II Catalina flying boat, which has now been restored down at Bankstown.
And what better way to help raise money to bring it back to life than with a display by the Australian Royal Air Force roulettes and tiger moths. The plan to return the Catalina to its old flying base at Rathmines is slowly gaining momentum.
Lake Macquarie City Council have now passed a feasibility study to build a hangar museum here. We've just got to get the money to build it.
And bring a piece of history back to Lake Macquarie.
People have said the Spitfire saved England, which it certainly did from invasion, but the Catalina just the same saved Australia from invasion by simply delaying the Japanese coming down the coast.
It's a sport with ancient traditions and modern equipment. In single and double canoes, there's nowhere to hide. So, is there ever a point where competitors feel like chucking in the paddle?
More so in the training when you're up at like 5:30 in the morning and you're up and you're thinking it's freezing cold, what am I doing out here? But you get out through these heads and you see the sun coming up and it's just an amazing feeling.
Maybe that's why participation numbers are on the rise.
For me personally, being an older fella, of course, used to play football, bad knees, so you don't use only using basically your upper body.
Today's racing featured teams and individuals on a course specially designed for the state titles.
So you've got to try and make new and different and give people a bit of a challenge. It's a state title, so expect them to be able to paddle and give them a challenge so they actually do earn what they get.
Once outside the harbour, paddlers turn right and head toward the bogey hole. Then hopefully they set sail for home.
It's mainly Joe doing the steering though, so if we don't go on course, it's him to blame.
Passing one of these on the freeway can be daunting, and with more than 200 fatal crashes involving heavy vehicles each year, there's cause for caution. But organisers are hoping this annual event will dispel some of the stigma.
I really do believe that it's a misunderstanding. People do not understand how a truck works and how it drives, and see some of these people who will dive in front of a truck when it's stopping for traffic lights.
Yeah, they change lanes in front of you and you pull up a set of lights, got to give them space and that sort of stuff. But other than that, you just got a bit of common sense on both parties.
The day also gives drivers the chance to polish their pride and joy and recruit new blood.
I want to drive a big truck.
This is the 18th year that we've done this, and I think over the period of time we've raised and donated to the Westpac helicopter in excess of $900,000.
Kath Landers, NBN News. Are beer-swilling blokes making way for more discerning drinkers when it comes to the hearty brew? Apparently so.
People are starting to get a bit more appreciation of flavour profile for beer, so craft brewers and microbreweries are really booming at the moment.
Even moonshines had a makeover.
I think people are looking at the boutiquey things now because there's all the generic brands and people are getting over that. They want something different.
This year's Bitter and Twisted Beer Festival showcased the specialty sips on the market and taught drinkers a thing or two about how to please their palate.
The hops and the malt characteristics are something that are different in everything, and they're one of the things that I've enjoyed trying to taste different levels of.
It's a long time, but it's an education process. We'll get there.
Consumers may have heeded the call of the boutique brew, but overall sales are flat, with beer consumption in Australia at a 60-year low.
For craft beer, we're increasing. The sale of beer is going down a little bit, so people are sort of drinking less but better beer.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
Brisbane was looking to go 33 games unbeaten, and this definitely helped the cause. As usual, Enrique was calm under pressure. With the odds stacked against them, the home side found a reply. Harry Kuehl proved he's still got plenty to offer, releasing Thompson for his second. But the champions weren't about to surrender. A controversial red card added to the tension, but Melbourne hung on for a fighting draw. No such problems for Newcastle thanks to a Jeremy Brockie first-half double. His first was good, his second drew high praise.
Yeah, definitely had the right part of my foot, but a lot of work was from Job's ball and Casey's ball as well. They got great passing vision and they definitely set up the 2 goals.
Brockie and his teammates know they need to find form on the road if they're going to continue to defy the odds this season.
We've got a good opportunity to go and get a result against Melbourne Heart this week now and really set ourselves up for the following game against Brisbane as well.
Hunter winemakers are holding on to what they believe is their biggest weapon yet in the fight against coal seam gas mining, an 11,000 signature petition.
You can move sheep, you can move cattle, you can even move towns, but you cannot move vineyards.
And they say the potentially catastrophic impacts of coal seam gas are threatening to do just that. The tiny community of Broke feels very much under siege. Residents will give the petition to the state government tomorrow, hoping for a complete ban on mining in wine country.
This is a prime tourism area and it's based solely upon the wine, and if that goes, if we're unable to continue to grow our wine and make our wine, the tourism will just die off.
And of course there's no guarantee that it is not going to unaffect the ground and our water.
Most landholders have agreed to keep the gates shut to gas companies, but for some, the financial lure is too strong.
And it hasn't stopped them moving in over the road or across from me.
AGL has begun buying wineries like this one behind me, Pools Rock. So technically, with permission from the government, it could build a gas well every 500 metres up the road of this pristine area.
We've got a beautiful valley here in Broke. And it's just a shame for someone to be able to come in and just take over. It's sad.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
With pictures like these, it can be easy to see why the mining industry in New South Wales suffers from an image problem.
We're just, pointing out to the community that we're these bad people that do the wrong thing, but it's not the case at all.
The Minerals Council hopes to change that perception through a new campaign which includes a website and commercials.
To talk about some of the great things that the miners here in New South Wales have achieved, our world-leading safety, our great innovation in technology.
The campaign acknowledges the industry's support of projects like Healthy Dads, Healthy Kids, as well as its contribution to the community through mining royalties. But even it concedes the Hunter isn't getting its fair share.
Things like the Muswellbrook bypass and the single turnover pass and the Scone overpass, these are fundamental projects that the federal government should absolutely step up and fund.
The council also admits that while the industry is working to minimise its environmental impact, it still has some way to go.
Well, there's some really great things that we're already trialling in the environment space, things like using dust suppressants on our haul roads, but we know we need to strive to do better.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News. Carrington Bowling Club is on borrowed time, lucky to even make it through winter.
The members decided to keep battling on for the next few months because historically these are our best 4 months.
Its only hope beyond summer is a new bistro. The plans are drawn up, but the bolo needs $130,000 to make it a reality. It's part of the way there, having fundraised $30,000 and is now relying on local industry to dig deep.
Once it closes, there'll be no second chance. So this is a really important time in the club's life over the next couple of months to make sure we bring this home.
We need this. We don't we? We need this. We need it as a community centre.
Where would we go? Where would we meet,
The Carrington story is all too familiar. 26 clubs have closed in the Hunter in the past 15 years, and Clubs New South Wales says at least a dozen more are on the brink. But not everyone is struggling. Take Lowlands at Cooks Hill. Its membership is increasing daily, and unlike many Hunter clubs, it's actually turning a profit.
We started off, I think we were line ball the first year, maybe 5,000. We've crept up to where we were last year, 75,000, so we're doing very well.
Secretary Ron Fleming says the restaurant is a big part of Lowland's success.
You've got to create an interest for other patrons to come to your club.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
For children, it means that even if mum and dad are in a hard place, that they can be like the other kids.
Well, this appeal has now been running for 20 years.
It's delivered 1.7 million gifts to families right across Australia.
Australia's coastline is as dangerous as it is alluring. Half of all rock fishing deaths across the country occur in New South Wales waters, with one person dying every 2 months on average this year alone.
I guess the amount of people who are fishing on rocks compared to how many people die, it is a high percentage. In reality, we seem to see the same things happening. We're seeing people who can't swim, people who don't understand the dangers of the rocks.
The biggest concern for authorities is complacency, with many rock fishermen seemingly unaware of how quickly conditions can turn perilous.
Areas that are very flat, that look safe, are generally the most dangerous because a wave can come over, take you out and then suck you back off the rocks.
Last year, 5 people died at Catherine Hill Bay in one of the worst rock fishing tragedies on record. A coronial inquiry into the Catherine Hill Bay tragedy suggested the government look at making life jackets compulsory for all rock fishing activities. Another inquiry into rock fishing deaths almost a decade ago made similar recommendations, but no legislation was ever passed. Several safety campaigns have been launched since then, but it's feared the message isn't getting through.
Realistically, I think we need to address the communities and the people who are consistently falling into this trap. And, you know, if people can't swim, then it should at least be mandatory for people who can't swim well to wear a life jacket.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
When you've been given another opportunity, you realise how much you miss something, and I've been absolutely flying and more determined and like a teenager again, and absolutely loved it.
Go to any Jets training session over the past 2 months and it's clear Michael Bridges hasn't lost his touch. The new coach has been one of his biggest supporters. But he still had to be convinced the former captain was ready.
He's been fine, he's been able to do everything that's been asked. So as far as quality is concerned, we all know how good a footballer he is and how smart a footballer he is. So for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer.
Bridges is keen to show his critics the injuries that forced him into retirement are behind him.
I'm my biggest critic. If my body didn't feel right or I didn't feel right, I would have said 4 or 5 weeks ago no. And I've just gone and gradually felt better and better, and I love being back in the park again.
A-League clubs are only allowed 5 foreign players. Bridges' return was made possible last week when the FFA reclassified former Iraqi refugee Ali Abbas as an Australian citizen.
I'm just thankful I've been given the opportunity again, and the words I want to use, Mitchie, I can't, because I feel like a pig and you know what, and I'm just so excited and raring to go again.
He's confident it's only a matter of time before we see more of this. So don't be surprised if Bridges travels to Melbourne this week for a cameo against the Heart.
He feels there's unfinished business in regards to his playing career, and I couldn't be happy with that.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. The W-League Jets had never beaten the Raw, but fancy footwork from Lisa DeVanna and a clinical finish from Tara Andrews gave the visitors hope. Early in the second half, a lucky goal put the home side in front 2-1. Devanna went looking for an equaliser and was brought down by Casey Dumont. The Matildas midfielder then calmly tied the game. With minutes remaining, the Raw were penalised for handball, and once again Devanna was deadly. Today, she had little sympathy for the defending champs.
I think a lot of the Brisbane girls would have considered it was controversial, but end of the day, I think the best team won. I think, we played well, and, I felt that we deserved to be on top.
Devanna was going to sit out the season, but after being convinced by Cheryl Salisbury to join the Jets, she won't let niggling injuries ruin her campaign.
As long as I can walk, I can play, so I don't really focus about how much I'm hurting. I just want to play and win and do well, because that's just the type of player I am.
The coach is hoping that attitude will rub off on the younger players.
I think the girls are still gelling. They're getting to know each other's play. We've only been together for two full weeks now, so I think we can still build on this performance.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
"26 clubs have closed in the Hunter in the past 15 years, and Clubs New South Wales says at least a dozen more are on the brink.
"11,000 signatures from farmers to wine lovers and the industry itself. They're all opposed to coal seam gas mining. Some believe the process pollutes water resources, and that's prompted one of the country's best-known winemakers to plead with Parliament.
To consider putting a ring fence, for want of a better word, around the Hunter Valley wine industry.
The wineries, more than 120 of them, also play a big role in the Hunter's billion-dollar tourism industry, and they help sustain small towns like Broke, who are now leading the fight.
If we've got a coal seam gas wellhead every 500 square metres along Broke Road, our tourism industry is going to disappear very quickly.
Upper Hunter MP and Tourism Minister George Souris was presented with those concerns at State Parliament this morning.
Accepting a petition's one thing, Minister. Supporting the petition something different.
Look, I didn't come down here to debate those issues. I am a member of Cabinet, and so therefore ultimately I will be part of the decision-making process.
He'll make his final call once the Coalition's regional land use assessment is finished. Kevin Mettam, NBN News.
Hunter Police, like their colleagues statewide, are outraged over proposed cuts to death and disability benefits. Under the changes, if an officer is injured, they'll have 8 months to return to work before their pay is cut to 75%. 2 years off duty, and that falls to 65% before being cut off after 5 years.
It's just disgusting. They're an absolute joke, and they're an insult to every single one of us.
The force has taken out graphic full-page advertisements in major newspapers, and Hunter-based officers have pledged to deal with one crime at a time to slow down response times.
If someone's had a shoplifting incident where the person is left, or if they've had their house broken into over the night, they can expect some delays in relation to that.
It doesn't end there. Instead of handing out fines for minor traffic offences, motorists will be let off with warnings, and police won't be handing over results from drink driving operations.
And normally at the end of those we hand in statistics from it, and the government will be able to get on the perch and say, we've breath tested so many drivers, we've issued so many infringements or so many charges. However, they won't be able to say any of that.
Similarly, incidents of alcohol-related crime won't be recorded. The government has recommended the changes in response to Ministry of Police data, which has found that over the past 6 years, the cost of the current scheme has increased by 317%, and that if it keeps going, it is expected to blow out by $2.5 billion by 2015. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
When Maitland's Mall opened in the late 1980s, hundreds flocked to what was the largest shopping precinct in the area. 23 years later, it's a vastly different story. Trade has deteriorated, sales are sluggish and shoppers scarce.
It's all dead.
Deserted. It's really pretty disappointing and a bit sad, I think.
In a bid to restart the city's commercial heart, Maitland Council will tonight vote on allowing one-way traffic in the mall and opening up river access.
It could mean that we would have to purchase properties to provide this opening through to the river, and that's something that, as I've said, nearly every survey that we've done, people are very, very supportive of it.
It's lunchtime on a weekday, and as you can see, the shoppers are few and far between. In contrast, Green Hills is packed, and the centre's just got approval for an additional 130 shops.
There's a feeling that somehow we need to compete with shopping centres, and I think that's totally the wrong direction.
Some believe the mall could become a dining hub, similar to Newcastle's Derby Street.
There are housing estates north, south, east and west, and Maitland happens to be right in the crossroads of all of that action. It's perfectly positioned.
I think that would be actually fantastic, more coffee shops here and to get people outside. I think it's lovely.
If we had more cafes and more boutiques, I think that might work.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
We've had some wonderful responses. There's a couple there that just give you goosebumps, with their heartfelt thanks.
He enjoyed plenty of success with the Mariners during the Super League war. Since then, Graham Murray's coaching career has taken him to NRL Grand Finals. Now, the former Blues mentor can't wait to return to the Hunter and pass on his knowledge to our region's best juniors.
When you get to first grade, you just put the frills on them, but we'd like to think that at that lower level, that those little things that you can add to them that make them better players, and obviously one day playing first grade for the Knights.
The Knights believe Murray can enhance an already successful program.
Junior development, coach education has long been the jewel in the crown of the Newcastle Knights. We've done it for a hell of a long time, and we think we've done it pretty well.
Murray revealed it was Wayne Bennett who approached him about taking the job. The pair have never worked together, but it's clear the new coach and current Newcastle staff have plenty of respect for Murray's knowledge of the game.
There's so many things I can learn off Wayne and vice versa. I hope I can share a couple of things that I've done over the years with him.
Apart from the football experience, the personality to carry this job off, there's probably no better man than Graham Murray.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Ali Abbas came to Australia in 2007 as part of Iraq's under-23 side, before famously leaving the squad to seek asylum. Following a stint in the Sydney Premier League, Abbas arrived at the Jets. Come January 26, he'll be an Australian citizen.
I'd like to thank Marconi, Lee Sterry, everyone, Newcastle Jets, coaches, everyone.
I think it's a great story, and saw him this morning and he gave me a g'day mate, so he's going to be a bona fide Aussie, which is fantastic.
That move helped Michael Bridges out of retirement. Today he completed his first session back as a registered player. With the Jets nursing a handful of injury concerns, the coach won't be putting extra pressure on the new additions.
You try and get 90 minutes out of Francis, you try and do him every training session here. You're going to find out pretty soon that Francis is going to get injured.
Casey Werman is another player managing his fitness. The veteran is impressed with the club's new man management system and also gave a rap to Van Egmond's football philosophy.
It's just a matter of explaining that right, and Gary's explanations are really starting to come true to the boys, and they're starting to believe in the way he wants to play. But like I said, he explains it a lot better than what I've seen other coaches explain it.
Despite the win over Perth, the coach isn't about to ease up.
A team that goes 2-0 up at home after 10 or 12 minutes really should go on with the job.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The smile says it all. John Cooper's best friend of 10 years is back, right where she should be. 2 days ago, he was shattered after his beloved Ellie took off into bushland northeast of Singleton.
We were target shooting, I suppose, or sighting in a rifle, and the dog ran off because of the noises.
John searched the rugged 130-acre Hunter property until dark, but Ellie was nowhere to be seen.
I couldn't eat. I wanted to be physically sick. I just kept thinking I can't live life without her.
Devastated, he returned to his Lake Macquarie home 130 kilometres away, but not for long.
Could not sleep, so I headed back up there again, got up at 1:30 in the morning, up to the property, because I wanted to be where she is. I felt like I'd abandoned her.
John still had no luck, so come daybreak, he rang a mate with a helicopter. It was going to be like searching for a needle in a haystack, but 15 minutes after takeoff, they spotted Ellie by a creek.
Some people said, "Oh, how much that cost?" I didn't even ask a price.
Ellie had walked 4 kilometres, she was exhausted and her paws were a little worse for wear, but otherwise she was in good shape, much to John's surprise and relief.
And my whole time I'm thinking, one of those eagles takes her, or a snake, there's pythons there, the carpet snakes, they'll take her, and that really, really worried me.
And next time?
She gets tied up next time.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.